In a small village in the Philippines, nestled between verdant rice fields and towering mountains, lived a young woman named Lila. She was the eldest daughter in her family, with dreams that soared beyond the horizon. Her parents worked tirelessly as farmers, and despite their struggles, they always emphasized the value of education. Lila excelled in school, fueled by a desire to lift her family out of poverty. After graduating high school with honors, Lila was determined to pursue a better life. She learned of opportunities abroad, where many of her neighbors had found work and sent money home. It was a common story, young Filipinas leaving for distant lands to support their families. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, Lila applied for a position as a caregiver in Singapore, dreaming of the financial independence it would bring. Upon her arrival, the initial thrill of the new city quickly gave way to a stark reality. The bustling streets of Singapore, lined with skyscrapers and neon lights, felt cold and indifferent. Lila was placed with an elderly woman who required constant care. At first, she was grateful for the job, but soon she faced the harsh truth of her situation. Her employer, a middle-aged woman, was often impatient and demanding. Lila was expected to work long hours, often exceeding her contract, without overtime pay. She was subjected to verbal abuse, yelled at for the smallest mistakes, made to feel worthless. The isolation from her family weighed heavily on her heart. Despite her best efforts to connect with other Filipino workers, she found herself marginalized and treated as inferior by both her employer and other residents. Language barriers further complicated her situation. Though she spoke English, the nuances often eluded her, making her feel vulnerable and alone. Lila often walked through the city, lost in her thoughts, her dreams fading with each passing day. The bright lights that had once dazzled her now felt like a mockery of her circumstances. As the weeks turned into months, Lila's spirit began to crumble. She kept in touch with her family, trying to maintain a facade of strength. She would share stories of her new life, carefully editing out the pain. Her family's pride in her achievements fueled her determination to persevere, even as her heart grew heavy with despair. But the abuse escalated. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Lila was reprimanded for a minor error. The woman hurled insults, belittling Lila's worth as a person. That night, Lila wept, feeling utterly trapped. The realization dawned on her she was not just a caregiver, she was a victim of a system that exploited her vulnerability. The weight of discrimination bore down on her. At the market, she overheard conversations filled with stereotypes about Filipinos seen as mere workers, unworthy of respect. The sting of those words clung to her like a shadow, deepening her sense of isolation. Days turned into a blur. Lila started skipping meals, her body weakening. Sleep eluded her, nightmares haunting her thoughts. She felt invisible, lost in a sea of faces that looked through her rather than at her. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed, replaced by a vacant stare that worried her fellow workers, but she masked her pain behind a fragile smile. One rainy evening, Lila made her way home after another exhausting day. The sky wept with her, the raindrops mingling with her silent tears. As she crossed the threshold of her employer's home, the heaviness in her chest felt unbearable. The walls seemed to close in on her, suffocating any remaining hope. In that moment of despair, Lila made a decision. She thought of her family, of the sacrifices they had made for her to be here. But the thought of enduring another day of abuse felt impossible. That night she penned a letter to her family, pouring her heart onto the page. She wrote of her love for them, her dreams, and the pain that had consumed her. As dawn broke, La found peace in her choice. In a world that had treated her with cruelty, she sought an escape, believing it was the only way to silence the pain that echoed in her heart. Her departure left a void, a silence that would reverberate through her family and community. When her family received the letter, the shock and grief were profound. They had believed Lila was building a better life, unaware of the torment she faced. The village mourned her loss, a young woman with dreams now reduced to a tragic story. They gathered to honor her memory, to share the weight of her struggles. Lila's story became a catalyst for change. In the months that followed, her village rallied to support those who sought work abroad, advocating for better protections and raising awareness about the harsh realities faced by many workers. Lila's name became synonymous with resilience and the need for compassion. In the end, Lila's spirit lived on, a reminder of the sacrifices made by countless others seeking a brighter future. Her silent echoes prompted a conversation that, though too late for her, could help others find their voice and reclaim their worth in a world that often turned a blind eye.